Starting in the United States, where the White House has announced new tariff rates for dozens of countries that have not yet reached a trade deal with the United States.
From the White House moments ago, they say today the president signed an executive order increasing the tariff on Canada.
On the 1st of August, 2025, President Trump shook the global marketplace with the announcement of sweeping new reciprocal tariffs targeting imports from nearly 70 countries, among them economic heavyweights like Canada, Brazil, India, Taiwan, and Switzerland. These duties, ranging anywhere from 10% to a staggering 41%, have pushed America's average tariff rate to heights not seen in nearly a century. The administration is selling this as a bold move to protect U.S. industry and bring trade partners to the negotiating table, but behind the political talking points, the reality is far more complicated. Global trade routes are being recalculated overnight, supply chains are bracing for disruption, and domestic markets are already feeling the tremors. Some of America's most recognizable companies, from consumer goods giants that stock your home to automakers that keep the country moving, are staring down higher costs, shrinking margins, and tough choices about whether to raise prices or cut back operations. And that's just the beginning. In today's video, we'll dive deep into which companies could take the biggest hits, why these tariffs could ripple into every corner of the economy, and what this might mean for your wallet in the months ahead. So stick with us, and don't forget to subscribe, because we're breaking down the winners, the losers, and the hidden consequences the headlines aren't telling you. When Trump's sweeping reciprocal tariffs took effect on the 1st of August, they instantly changed the cost equation for many U.S. companies that depend on imports from countries like Canada, Brazil, India, Taiwan, and Switzerland. Procter & Gamble was one of the first to publicly confirm the hit. The company brings in a large portion of its raw materials and finished products from tariff-targeted markets. With duties now ranging up to 41%, their input costs rose sharply. G's CFO explained that these higher import costs left them with no choice but to raise prices on roughly a quarter of their U.S. product line. The increases are set to take effect this month, directly impacting brands like Tide, Pampers, and Crest. To offset some of the pressure, they've also announced job cuts, discontinued certain products, and even exited smaller, lower-margin markets like Bangladesh to preserve profitability. This shows how tariffs aren't just an abstract policy. They filter down into everyday products and force companies to make tough operational decisions. In the manufacturing sector, the impact is even more blunt. Detroit Axle, a Michigan-based auto parts maker, revealed that their monthly tariff bill has ballooned from about $700,000 to over $7 million. This is because they source essential steel and components from countries now facing the highest tariff bans. Those extra costs can't be easily absorbed or passed on in a competitive auto parts market, so they've taken legal action, filing a lawsuit against the administration to challenge the tariff structure. The auto industry at large is facing the same headwinds. Ford, GM, and Tesla all rely on imported components, from advanced electronics to specialty metals that now carry a significantly higher price tag. Ford has already attributed an $800 million quarterly loss to these trade measures. GM and Tesla haven't put out final numbers yet, but they've warned investors about similar cost disruptions, hinting at lower margins and production adjustments ahead. For automakers, these tariffs don't just mean paying more. They mean rethinking, sourcing, delaying launches, and potentially losing price competitiveness both at home and abroad. The ripple effect extends beyond individual balance sheets. Higher import costs push up production expenses, which eventually show up in retail prices, feeding into inflation. That erodes consumer purchasing power and can dampen demand across multiple sectors. For companies like P&G, that means the risk of shoppers trading down to cheaper brands. For automakers, it can slow showroom traffic and make financing less attractive as vehicle prices climb. The uncertainty around how long these tariffs will last or whether they will escalate further makes planning extremely difficult. Companies can't confidently set budgets, negotiate supplier contracts, or commit to expansion when the ground rules can change with a single policy announcement. What started as a political move to level the playing field in trade is already manifesting as a costly operational challenge for some of America's most iconic brands. If these measures stay in place, the financial strain is likely to grow, potentially forcing more companies into price hikes, restructuring, or outright market withdrawals. What we're seeing here is a textbook example of how broad, sweeping trade moves can ripple through an entire economy. These tariffs weren't aimed at just one company or one sector, yet they've ended up squeezing everyone from household product makers to heavy industry giants. Procter & Gamble is raising prices and cutting jobs, Detroit Axle is fighting for survival in court, and major automakers like Ford are already booking hundreds of millions in losses. The extra costs don't vanish. They show up in higher prices for consumers, tighter margins for businesses, and more uncertainty for investors. This is the kind of policy shift that doesn't just change trade statistics. It changes day-to-day business decisions, slows down growth, and forces companies to think smaller instead of bigger. If these tariffs stay in place or expand, the strain will only deepen and the effects will spread further than most people expect. That's why we'll keep tracking every move, every policy, and every consequence as it unfolds. So make sure you subscribe and stay with us for the next chapter of this story.